everyone, to Dogs Down South. I'm your host, Ted Turner, and it is officially Georgia's day for SEC Media Day, and I'm super excited to bring you every, well, not every single word Kirby said, but every single thing that went on around Georgia's Media Day today. We're going to cover basically what Kirby said, and we're going to keep Raylan Wilson and Gunnar Stockton, as well as Drew Bobo, for a day later on this week or possibly next week for some added content. But there was so much to go over for Kirby Smart today. Man, SEC Media Days just kind of hits different, right? It kind of gives you the feeling that the season is right around the corner. If I looked at it last, I think actually we podcasted last night, and it was weird. We started before midnight and ended up after midnight. So I think we're around 46 days till Georgia opens the season. But SEC Media Days gets it really started. I was listening to Kirby this morning, and I can't lie, I was getting a little bit excited. I was, hearing Kirby, hear him answer questions, and we're going to listen to excerpts from Kirby's uh, part of his press conference today and go over and break some of them down. But it just got the wheels turning, man. I can't tell you how excited I am about once we get through media days. Then we get a little bit of break, and when you look at how fall kind of works, for high school starts back for high school kids, and then very shortly after that, you start having high school football games. You start having obviously fall camp, and then fall camp leads us right into opening week 0 of college football, and then there we are, and we're off to the races. I hope for myself and my friends and everybody listening from the Tampa area that we get some fall weather sooner rather than later. It has been a muggy, very hot Florida summer, and I'm not rushing by any means, but I always like looking forward to and um, greatly anticipating the fall, as well as pumpkin spice latte and cool weather. But let's hop right in. So obviously, big thing to talk about today. Kirby Smart took the podium. Day 2 of SEC Media Days. If you don't already know, we finished up episode 108 hit last night. We finished up our SEC summer preview, and we finished up with Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, and M, and then Ole Miss. I thought it would be fitting to finish with Ole Miss, being as though we finished our season last year with Ole Miss. And so our complete SEC preview is done. We spent a lot of time on the SEC teams that obviously Georgia will be playing, and other as well as all the other teams that Georgia's not slated to be playing, which was a little bit different this year. Previewing Tennessee, previewing some of those teams that Georgia has been playing for the last few years. They won't be playing. Tennessee's a big one that's not on that schedule this year that we're used to, and I say that because you're going to hear in a minute some of the questions from the day, and there was a nice jab by a sports writer out of Athens when he asked Kirby about a question about Tennessee, but I won't spoil it. But if you've listened to it already, you know what I'm talking about. But I thought it would be cool to as a couple of like icebreakers to first start out by the big kind of news that hit last night, but apparently some of this is I don't know if this is all rumor. It happened a couple of months ago, and it's just now getting broken day before SEC Media Days, maybe on purpose because Kirby didn't want to really be cornered with it today. But the big news out of Athens is that one of the top running back transfers in the portal that came to Georgia, Dante Dowdell, and was going to be looked at to fill a lot of those carries that McCray uh, had last year. Josh McCray had last year is actually season-ending injury. From what I understand, it was an ATV accident. And so I'm not sure on the information if this was actually a couple months back if this is recent. I know Kirby put it today as, it's very uncertain right now if he will be back this year, and I think it looks pretty. I think Kirby just says that because there really is no timetable, right? You don't know how quick they'll recover. I mean, look at something like Ahmad Hardy, and with the off-season incident that happened where he was shot in his leg, and a lot of questions around would he be back sooner rather than later? Would he play the majority of the year, only half the year? Like, what does that look like? And obviously Eli Drinkwitz said yesterday that everything's looking up and up, and kind of made it really sound like that he was going to be ready to go week one for Missouri, which is really great for Missouri. But however, for Dante Dowdell, this sounds like it is a definite season-ending injury, and prayers out for the young man. I know he's transferring from Kentucky. This was his senior year. He was looking to fill some specific areas for Georgia. Obviously, Georgia has one of the top running back rooms in the country. You first look at the comments, and the first things you see are, people that are like, next man up and things of that nature, and feel bad for the guy, but he was buried on the depth chart. But it's like, realistically, how Georgia looks at this running back room. It's very much there's a 1-2, and then there's a Josh McCray type guy last year who filled a void in certain situations, and I do think you'll see Dwight Phillips filling a lot of those third down, role and responsibilities, kinda like a Cash Jones did last year. So, even though you can look at the depth chart and go, "How did he fit in the equation?" And he wasn't gonna see an immense amount of touches, you feel bad for the guy, and you look and you go, "Obviously, we went out and got him, so he was gonna fill a void in this area that was going to help us tremendously." And so, um, but now, our biggest thing is to pray for a good recovery for him. Hopefully, I've not heard any details about it. I mean, I really don't know what happened, whether he had broken leg, or just I don't know the extent of it of what happened, but I do know it was bad enough to where he's out for the season. So, and it could have been something even as minor. I don't wanna speculate. It could have been an ACL, it could have been something that was just, merely, uh, you know, just a stroke of luck. That's what we hope. I mean, initially, if it could be an injury that he can quickly heal from, um, be out this year, but it'll encourage him in the future of what he wants to do in sports and football. That's the ideal outcome, but we haven't heard much other than he's out for the season and it was an ATV accident, and you don't wanna speculate too much, but we know that we didn't hear much past that, so hopefully it's not anything to where, um, you know, there are parts of what he can do moving forward that can be, dangerous, or, affect him in the long run of his health in the future. That's the prayer, and that's the best outcome for him. But with that being said, yeah, it is. I mean, it is next man up, and Georgia has um, a very deep running back room. I think a very talented running back room. I know in the offseason, a lot was said about Chauncey Billups, as well as, um, you know, I'm sorry, I said Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups is an NBA player. Chauncey Bowens and Nate Frazier, and what their dynamic was, and how they were working through NIL, and was Chauncey a little bit, edgy about the fact of he was going to get the carries this year that he needed and wanted. Um, but I also think a lot of the things that went on with Georgia in particular, and how their running back room was spun, and how their NIL was spun, was definitely something that was more media based rather than what was actually coming out of the camp at Georgia. But with that being said, it is a deep room, and yes, I mean, next man up. There's a lot of great players in that room. One of the most talented rooms in all of college football this year. And so, but initially, like I said, ending with this Dante Dowdell, we hope you get better very soon. Our goal is to have you back to 100% health, whether that be this year or next year, whether you're at Georgia or moving on to your career in football. We wish you the best, and sorry to hear this for him. As we enter into today's gonna be a little bit shorter than normal. We'll keep this a little bit. I mean, we'll keep it as um, I don't know, as short as possible, covering media day, but as information based as well as possible. So we're gonna dive right in. I'm going to, like I said, I'm not stellar with technology, but we're gonna jump right in. We're gonna hop in right here with Kirby. He opened up the presser right after Greg Sankey left the podium. He thanked Greg Sankey. He thanked the administration. He thanked his staff. He thanked a lot of people behind the scenes, and he talked a lot of bit about the leadership of this team. And he jumped out right out of the gut with he jumped right out of the game with the gates is what I'm trying to say. With Gunnar Stockton. Leadership, very, not very often do you see a player making 2 SEC media days. And for Gunnar Stockton, this is his second, which says a lot about his leadership and what he means to Georgia. I thought it would be great to start right out of the gates with this clip. Let's hear what Kirby had to say about Gunnar Stockton right out of the bat.
One's a returner. It's very rare you get a second SEC Media Days. Gunnar Stockton is doing that. He embodies what leadership is, and he doesn't do it through his mouth. We can't get the guy to talk half the time, but when he gets around the players, they know. They see the toughness he plays with. He embodies our program. Just love everything he stands for. Quick story about Gunnar. We took a leadership group to go whitewater rafting this off season. We went up into North Carolina to go whitewater rafting, and they said, okay, who's going to be at the front of the boat? They explained that this was the most risky position, that you got to get on the front of the boat. You may fall out. When you go over a rapid, you'll be nose down, and you're the first to go down into the water. Obviously had a life jacket. Obviously, we made it as safe as we possibly could, but he chose to jump into that seat. And I think that says a lot about who he is. He leads from the front. He takes hits. He embodies everything our program's about in toughness and culture and the love for his university. So I'm glad he's here to share with you guys today and be around you guys. Another young man.
So yeah, so he hops right out with Gunnar Stockton, and I love hearing that. I mean, if you're a Georgia fan, you know what you're getting with Gunnar Stockton immediately right out of the gates. This is one of the first clips that just had me jumping out of my seat because I've seen the shots Gunner's taken. I've seen the media coverage um, that he doesn't get on a daily basis. Um, it's pretty wild for me. Uh, the direction that people have gone with the quarterback position. I think the quarterback position is just as much solidly based off of leadership as it is prototypical arm, athleticism, determination. I say determination, but just more of the drive and the physical ability to play the position. And we've seen that a lot, right? I think I even mentioned a couple of days ago when I was going live about Tom Brady. Now, if Tom Brady would have had the mindset of what he was supposed to be by what everybody said he was going to be, how they scouted him, what they gave him, what they said he was going to do, and how he was going to perform, and kind of how they rated him coming into the NFL. If he just kind of settled for that, I think that Tom Brady would not be the person he is today, and he would definitely not be the quarterback and the Super Bowl champion, multiple MVP winning seasons that he had would not be something that happened if he would have just said, I think I'm just going to kind of have that mindset of this is kind of all I can do. I have that fixed mindset. And I really look at Gunner and I kind of think the same thing. He's a guy that has taken a lot of hits. He's done a lot for his team. He's come in and he's taken criticism. Even when you go back and look at his play against Notre Dame in a year that I kind of call like, like week 0 per se with Gunner, and to say that he took a lot of unwanted flack. Sorry, clear my throat. A lot of unwanted flack for that. Needless to say, probably unfair, right? Even last season, you had a lot of, why are we not stretching the field? Is the play calling? Why can't we be explosive? Why can't we throw the ball more than 8 yards or 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage and all the above. And, you look at Gunner, and even though he's not a guy on your list that I think athleticism wise and NFL draft wise and draftability and also just arm talent and all those things alone that keep him from those top 1 or 2 spots. I think what you notice in that comment is the thing that keeps him very close to a lot of people's minds and why Georgia can do something like they did in the Stetson Bennett years is Gunner's an incredible leader, and Gunner continues to land on lists of people that go, "Who do you want in that spot in clutch situations to win you a game?" And the names that bounce back and forth are Trinidad Chambliss, Gunner Stockton. But as far as the gutsy, stick your head down, go to work type of guy, that's who Gunner Stockton is. And I think, man, I think Georgia's extremely blessed to have him this year. You really look at a third year type scenario, and this is kind of the DNA of Georgia, right? You look at Kirby's the most. I think he's going to rely on what he's going to rely on the most is especially at that position is a quarterback he can trust, one that's bought into Georgia as a whole, and one that's going to come in with the mentality every day and work hard and lead by example. Because I think Kirby, like myself and like a lot of people out there, is they look for that position to be a leadership position way before they look for it to be the biggest talent position that needs to happen on the field. Uh, Kirby continued to go into we're gonna fast forward to, let's see, 1340, if I'm not mistaken. Let's get there real quick. Let's see what we got here. Give me ahead of time. So, let's see. So Kirby will entertain this question about, um, if I can find it real quick, about the run game and the defense and the dependency on the fact that Georgia, unlike some teams, relies a lot more on the run, and a lot more on defense than any other team, not only in the SEC but in college football. Very interesting question. I want you to hear what Kirby says about this. Then we're going to talk about it real quick.
Go in the section in front of me, right in the middle, Kirk. It's coming from your right.
Kirk Bowles from the Houston Chronicle. Kirby, you talked about, wanting to talk about how to win. Are y'all a little bit of the exception or outlier in the way y'all stress the defense and more running game? It's such a passing game trend now in college football. Running back hadn't won the Heisman since Derrick Henry in 2015. Do you feel like in some ways you are an outlier against that trend?
Those would be your words, not mine, because I like to think that we play good defense, we play good offense. Statistically, over the last 5 years, we've got the second most explosive plays in all of college football, and that's on offense. So, I think there's a misnomer probably because of the position I coach and my history and the defensive philosophy that it's like this. Oh, okay, we're just going to. No, we believe you have to run the ball. In the fourth quarter, there were probably 4 games last year that if we didn't run the ball for a first down, and they knew we were going to run the ball because of the clock management, that you lose games or you give them another possession. And our identity is going to be physical. You can be physical in the pass game. You can be physical on the perimeter. We pride ourselves in those things as well. But I don't think that we're an anomaly or an exception. We just follow the rule of the book that when you have to run the ball, you have to be able to run the ball in games. There's going to come a time where every team has to do that. Doesn't mean you can't be explosive, and we certainly need to be more explosive. But when you do a 5-year study, 4-year study, you look at the numbers, Georgia's been in the top 5 of all those categories. So I like to think that our success has come from both offense, defense, and special teams.
Now, why is this so important? Because I know what everybody's going to say with this. They're going to be like, I think this is a key question because, yes, Georgia has landed in that category statistically. And I don't think Kirby would stand on that stage and mislead anybody. But I think what Georgia has not done in the what have you done for me lately category is we haven't seen that from this offense in the past 3 years. When you look back at what this offense was when Stetson Bennett was the quarterback, when you had Todd Monken as your offensive coordinator, I think they're looking and going, we get that, Kirby, but that was what we saw in those national championship years. But we've really yet to see that because he used the words explosive. And we've said it multiple times this year that Georgia has said they're going to have to be more explosive this year in the passing game to be successful. More plays of 20 yards, more hits, more higher percentage 40-yard passes, where we can hopefully set the run up to throw over the top with some of these, big body wide receivers. But I think what people are going to really kind of cling to in that question is yeah, Kirby, I get that. That stat that's really rich for you to say, being as though we don't really see that the past 3 years with this Mike Bobo offense and the inability in some people's case to reach the style of football that we think Georgia can be at, which is we want to see us running the football very well, but we also want to see us being able to line up and throw the ball if we have to. And we feel like we have to maybe get too creative with how we pass the football in order to, in order to get the results we need to be balanced. And I think that's why that question was incredibly rich for this guy to ask. I think he's spot on too. I think he's saying what some people might be thinking this year. It's like, yeah, I get where you're in that category for the past 5 years, but was it really more of the past 2 out of 5 years? Because the other 3, it's like maybe we did enough to average out to be in the top 5, but it doesn't feel that way. Um, and I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? I have no idea what I would venture to say, and we're going to end in a little bit with what was asked about Mike Bobo, and we're going to venture into that because we're covering SEC Media Days, and we're not going to shun away from some of the questions that he was given. But I do think that why this question was asked, because it's another lead up to look and go, hey, is this a team that has to rely on the defense to play elite and then the football to be ran at a high level? Because at the end of the day, we're worried about turning the football over. We don't trust the passing game. We don't trust the offensive coordinator to come up with an elaborate scheme enough to be effective in the passing game. And so basically all we can do is have incredible athleticism at the wide receiver spot and throw dump screens and bubble screens and you name it, whatever has a screen name in it, to get who knows that will be this year the ball. Uh, I don't first think that you have that, uh, you know, that type of playmaker in Zachariah Branch last year is basically, a 1 in a million type guy. That might be really, um, high statistically as far as a betting game, but I do think it's very unheard of to see a playmaker like that and what he was able to do in space and how we were able to get creative and get him the ball. And that just doesn't come around every year. You can't just substitute and go, all right, who's going to be that guy this year? Sokovia White Helton might be that guy, but you can't just assume that he's going to be able to be put in that position and get the productivity that he got. Because Zachariah Branch was a special guy. He was a special player. Moving ahead to not bog down too much, we're going to skip ahead to 1825. I'm giving you, man. There you go. That's what happens. We're not we're not a professional podcast, so we get what's called we uh, get commercials. That's what we get here, and we are going to mute this real quick so we don't hear it. Finish this commercial out, and then we will skip ahead and turn this back up. We will skip to 1825, where we're going to cover. I'm sorry. No, 1648. Here's one we can stick at right here. This is the gentleman. I'll let you hear this one. This is good. Let you roll this one right now.
Front row, over to our right.
Hey, Coach. Steve Moulton, 97.7 ESPN The Zone out of Huntsville. Hope you're doing well.
Doing well.
I wanted to ask about the wide receiver room in particular. One of the bigger question marks, at least that I have, how would you assess the wide receiver room heading into fall camp?
I'm just very thankful for people like you, Steve, that keep questioning them, because the more you question them, the more it helps me motivate them. So everybody says that we don't listen to you guys. Well, the wide receivers are listening, so they'll have a new challenge issued based on your question.
All right, we'll go in the section in front of me, right?
Well, there you
about four
go. That one right there will be viral all week long. A lot of people were tagging this to me today, sent it out to me, and I was super, you know, I don't know, man. Like, a lot of people look at Kirby, and you look at the fact that, excuse me, that Kirby is kind of known now, right, as the more hired tenured coach, taking over kind of the Nick Saban role of this SEC league. And so when you look at that and you look what Kirby brings to that, you kind of start to expect these type of interviews and how these questions come to happen. And you used to see a little bit of these with Nick Saban, but you didn't see them a lot. A lot of people are like, they feel like they're kind of scared to ask Kirby questions at these media days because you are going to get that, kind of Nick Saban straightforward answer. However, this is a very interesting comment because there's no secret that, you know, we've said this. If you look at every single Athlon Sports, every magazine that's covering preseason rankings and things of that nature, they said the same thing. They said, this wide receiver room is going to be very interesting. They didn't go out and they didn't find a guy in the portal. They didn't go after a big name. They didn't go after a Cam Coleman um, of that of that manner, or an Isaiah Horton, or when these guys were hitting the portal, Georgia wasn't in there, which says a lot about what do they feel like they have exactly what they need, especially with some of these guys in year 3 or 4, some of these guys in year 2 that should progress. I mean, you look at the names across this. I mean, let's not forget, even though I made that comment, that they did go out and get a guy they really liked, they really wanted. They talked about the backstory of Isaiah Cannon and what he can bring to Georgia's offense. Big body playmaking wide receiver that I think we can't shortchange his productivity in the spring game. You can't really look at the spring game and go, okay, if what we see in that game is basically what we're going to get in the fall. I think the playbook is very vanilla. I think coaches are very, very um, dialed in and concentrating on what they show other teams and how they can basically give a scout video out. I mean, Kirby's one of the only coaches, not only in the SEC conference, but in college football, to put televise the spring game. So that in itself is huge. And so, but with that, I mean, Kirby's also, he's not dumb. Like, you're not going to see this elaborate version of the playbook. So I do think Isaiah Cannon is going to bring a lot of productivity to this wide receiver room. Other names, obviously, that you're going to mention, Talon Taylor. I mean, everybody's looking at Talon Taylor and going, look, this guy was a 5-star. He came in. We're notorious for either, I mean, it's so weird, man. It's like, you look at the productivity at the wide receiver area, and we can all see with Zachariah Branch and Colby Young and things like that in the last few years. It's like, are we getting players that are already developed that are able to come in and be plugged in and to take the offense to another level? These are guys who have been plugged into our system, not Cannon, but like, you look at Talon Taylor, he's been plugged into our system. So in year 2, how is that going to transfer in? Are we really able to develop our wide receivers at a high level? Is James Coley going to make his money this year finally? And you're going to see this is the reason why we brought James Coley in, not based off of play calling or not based off of the passing game, not based off of recruiting, which he does do a great job recruiting, but does it pay off in terms of his development? What is huge in the area of developing wide receivers at this level. Obviously, Sokovie White Helton, a guy that's been sticking around. He carries really good speed. Can he be a guy to stick in that slot position? And nobody's going to be Zachariah Branch, but can he take on some of those responsibilities to offset some of what Zachariah Branch was able to do last year? Maybe. He has great speed. He has good hands. He has been dependable. He has a lot of upside. but does it all? This is the year where you look and go, does it all connect, right? For Sokovia White Helton. You hope so. But you got to remember, it seems like Sokovia White's been in this system for a long time. He has, but he's only a sophomore. He's a redshirt sophomore. This will be his third year in the program. Um, you look at some of Landon Raldon, you look at Craig Dandridge, you look at Tyler Williams, you look at some of these guys, London Humphreys. I think I said London Humphreys, Isaiah Cannon, C.J. Wiley, Thomas Blackshear. A lot of these guys are going to get a lot of touches. A name coming out of Georgia that we saw in the spring game that I think a lot of people don't understand that are gonna be intentional about getting some touches this year because he's an exciting playmaker that Georgia is extremely excited about is Craig Dandridge. This is a high profile freshman that Georgia is really high on. He's elusive, he's speedy, he's got good hands. He was a guy that a lot of the quarterbacks were really targeting. And that says a lot about a freshman when you get, quarterbacks like Gunnar Stockton, Ryan Puglisi who have been in the system who are targeting this kid over and over and over. That seems to that says to me that they've created some relation with him and they trust him in some areas and they've seen some areas that he can make us better. Um, so, with that being said, when you look at the names and you look at what you think we can do with these receivers on top of the tight end room, I think you're going to see Caden Prothrow lining up in some very what I would call exotic formations that has him, you know, gives him the ability in the slot to take on some roles that are different, that are exotic, that are going to stretch defenses in certain ways. And I think this is a way to get him some touches early on in his career. He's a guy that in a tight end room that's very loaded, that has to find a way to get on the field because he's a 5-star guy that can make things happen. And he did it in high school, and we want to make sure and get him touches and get him an opportunity to change the game in every way he possibly can. But with that being said, moving on. So there was let's move to 1825 here, where there was a question about Tennessee. This one will be going viral everywhere. Let's add this one and let's hear this comment right.
Coach TJ French, WUOG Athens. Looking at that schedule there on your right, looks like there's no Tennessee, which I'm sure is extremely bizarre for you. Just what are your thoughts on not playing them? And does that kind of feel like it's one less win being taken away off the schedule?
Yeah, you said that, not me. That's a tough place to play and tough team to play. I got a lot of respect for Josh and their staff. I mean, they're a tough prep. They're really hard to prepare for, and I'm glad other teams get an opportunity to do that because they get some new teams to play, and then we get some new teams to play. So very unique scheduling. Looking forward to the new format and the matchups that are created through the new format.
Wow, right. Obviously, everybody knows Tennessee is not scheduled to play Georgia this year. First time in a while, right? And obviously, we know that Tennessee hasn't beat Georgia in a long time. I think the actual date is sometime that goes back into 2016. Don't quote me on that, but um, also this isn't just sidebar. This is an exact reason. I could have basically said we're live from 10 miles away from, SEC Media Days in Tampa, but I didn't do that. We're coming live from my home tonight. But I am 10 minutes from where SEC Media Days is going on, and I still am putting it out there that I was, I really was hoping to get some credentials for SEC Media Days. I didn't get it, but this guy apparently did. And if you go back and you can check out the YouTube video on this guy, if that's what can get into SEC Media Days, then my hope is I'm not far off. I'm going to get my call. I'm going to get my call soon because my hair might look a little bit better. I might have a better question. And, I might just represent journalism, is that what you call it? Or just, uh, I don't know, podcasting and sports influencer. I don't know what he is and what he does, but I think I'd have a better question and a better look than this guy. But the question he had is just another way the media tries to stir this up. I think Tennessee is going to be really good this year. I think they're going to have um, some sleeper things go on with them. I think Faison Brandon, George McIntyre, whoever wins that battle, I think it's leaning a little bit more towards Faison Brandon, but I think they have an opportunity to be very good this year. It will be a freshman under center, no matter how you look at it. It's a Josh Heupel offense. He's always going to find a way to be really good. He's going to always find a way to score points. Jim Knowles takes this defense over. He has a great offensive line as well this year. Josh Heupel does. It's going to take some pressure off of this freshman quarterback, and I think they're going to be able to run the ball really well. So for Georgia, I would definitely say on top of the other, the Georgia Auburn game, playing Oklahoma this year, playing Ole Miss again, Alabama again, Florida neutral. So I'm not saying we're ducking Tennessee, but it's another weird, especially in a 9-game SEC schedule, another weird look at the fact of just how loaded the SEC is. I think Tennessee's going to be really good, and I think Kirby did not take the bait. And he said a really good comment where he's like, Heupel's very hard to get prepared for. He's very hard to understand how he's going to attack your offense. And I think what makes Josh Heupel in Tennessee even more dangerous this year is the fact that they have a great offensive line. They're going to be able to run the football, and Jim Knowles is your defensive coordinator. And if he can make the right moves and the right changes and get this defense going the right direction, Tennessee could be a sleeper. But also what should worry people is Tennessee could start to build on this, especially recruiting wise. And they have been no slouch in the portal nor the recruiting the recruiting rankings to where they can get back to being a team that is vying for a national championship every year. But although this looks like a rebuilding year, there's a lot of pieces of this team for Tennessee, not to spend too much time on them, that could say outside pick for college football playoff, depending on how it falls. It is hard to play in Knoxville, man. And that's why Kirby said it very clearly. He said, that's your comment. That's not mine. But I will say that a lot of people look back and they remember the Tennessee game from last year. I think maybe a little less similar situation because, the quarterback wasn't a freshman. He was, he played numerous snaps in Division I, live football games and things of that nature. And Joey Aguilar, of course, but if he can come in and do that in a Josh Heupel offense, I see no reason why Faison Brandon or George McIntyre can't do the same. Pressing ahead, Mike Griffin, man, love what Mike Griffin does. Shout out Mike Griffin. Also asking Mike Griffin, there we are again, man. We don't get our we need YouTube. We need everybody to go follow and like so we can get our upage on our Prime YouTube subscription. Let's see. Let's get this shared over here real quick. And let's listen to what Mike Griffin had to say, which I thought was very interesting. Love Mike Griffin, love what he does, love how he reports on Georgia football. Super excited to bring to you what he had to say. Here we go.
Court is the way back.
Mike Griffith, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Coach, you've won the last 2 SEC championship games, and yet there's a perception that maybe Georgia's not where it used to be because of the college football playoff. How do you put into perspective your conference success measured against how people are now evaluating college football based strictly on the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't know that I can put that in perspective. I'll leave that to you guys. I think you forget that we also lost to an SEC team within the playoffs. So it's another tribute to the fact we won the SEC because we beat that team, and then we won the SEC championship, and then we turned around and lost to an SEC team that was a really good football team and obviously one of the top 4 teams in the country, especially at the end of the year with the way they were playing. So I don't get hung up a lot on just the finish. I like to look back and say, okay, what did we do well in those games and what did we do poorly and how do we improve on it? But that's no different than I do week 5, week 6, week 7. So I would love to see, and I don't make it as an excuse, but I would love to see the flow of the season go like a football, a week to week, maybe a bye week somewhere in there, but a continuous thing. No sport that I know of shuts down for 25 to 30 days between performances. And, we have not had our best performances when we needed them most. And I don't want to blame it on that. I would love to see the flow of a season be like, okay, which team is the strongest continually playing and going week to week? And we've got some opportunities to do that in the future. I hope we can get to that point. But the format we play with now is great. I have no problem. When it was a 2-team format, I was part of it. When it was 4-team, I was part of it. You can always argue the opposite, especially if it doesn't go your way. That's not who I am.
Yeah, so I think you know exactly where he's going here. You know, when you look at, when you go back and you look at last year and you look at how long we waited to play between the SEC championship and the Sugar Bowl, it's like you start to wonder, and we've seen it in the past years, is that bye week really good for those bye week teams? Because I feel like those teams that had to go play a game, play a week, prepare, and just continue to go hop in, grind it out. Kirby's saying that, that's how Georgia's built. We're not built to sit there. We're built to continuously go. We're built for playing, at a pace where we're good with. We're week in and week out. We keep going. We keep motivated. It's hard to keep a team motivated for 25 days having practices, but also keep them healthy. Get creative on how you do things to keep culture going. To look at the team from the top down, but also in that whole time frame, you're also recruiting. You're also looking at transfer portal. You got people already transferring. You're not even you're trying to coach your team to a national championship while you're already in the middle of building your team of the future. It's hard. It's very hard. It is. And Kirby said it. He's like, I'm fine with talking about the business side of college football, but it's not what I like doing. It's not what I prefer to do, because if we set our mind too far on those types of logistics, you become a team that's more worried about that and less worried about winning football games. And it's very hard to get your team prepared mentally and physically to be off for that amount of days and to go win football games. And so I thought that was a really vital comment that he said. And Kirby's he said it over and over and over. He has no problem talking about NIL and you know where sports is going and things of that nature. But what he has been the most upfront about is that you're not thinking about the dynamic of all colleges across the America, all college sports across America, and how it affects them, right? Because this guy's like, I mean, I know what Kirby's thinking of. I'm taking the words out of his mouth. He's like, when you look at a 5-star halfback that people are looking at and go, man, he has the transfer portal and he gets $2-3 million. It's like, okay, but like I have great swimmers. I have great divers. I have great gymnastics people, track and field, equestrian, you name it. We have it. Georgia is very passionate. I think Josh Brooks does an incredible job overall with our athletics as a whole. I mean, one of the first times in the past 15 to 20 years that uh, the SEC champion has come in baseball and football out of the same school. Obviously, this past season, Georgia making that incredible run to win the SEC regular season championship, win the SEC tournament, to go into to get into that regional and to not, I'm sorry, to get into the College World Series and to not be able to finish the drill. But what an incredible year! What an incredible year for Wes Johnson and the players. But that's what Kirby's saying. He's like, look, this is across the board. We have to be able to support these ideas across the board, not just in football. And so I think that's a key thing. And then to end it all off, we're going to slip over to 24-20. Let me share the screen real quick. Thanks everybody for being patient tonight. I want to get you really good content from all parts of Kirby's presser today. So we're going to slip over to 24-16 forward. This is the last comment, and we'll hop in on this one. But let's hear this one.
Next round. Non-landscape question for you. How should we in the media talk about Mike Bobo?
I don't think that's my decision. I look at things through facts, and I look at things through what I see with my own two eyes. I was blessed to work for the greatest college football coach in the history of all of college football, and I don't even think it's arguable. I don't think you can even debate it. But I learned from him that you evaluate things from inside out. And I do think football intuition is one of my strengths. And knowing that, I know we got the right offensive coordinator. What you guys want to write and talk about is completely up to you, because I look at the production he's had, the success he's had, the team success where he doesn't worry about stats. He worries about winning football games. And the way he coaches our players day to day is unmatched in this country.
So you couldn't go an SEC Media Day without hearing about Mike Bobo. I don't think that it would be I don't think it would be an SEC media day. I think you would probably kind of go, was that really what happened? We went a whole SEC media day without talking about the offensive coordinator at the University of Georgia. Um, something key he said, but also something that you're going to hear later on. I want to give it away, but Drew Bobo talked about having his dad also as his coach, and they asked him. They said, you're not necessarily. He's not directly coaching you all the time, and you could see Drew Bobo kind of look and go. He kind of twitched a little bit, which told me it's like no, like he's on the field. He's treating me like every other player. He's talking directly to me. He's the offensive coordinator. And Kirby described Drew Bobo as playing a position that is not at all, um, you know, appreciated enough. If it goes wrong, it's his fault. But if it goes right, nobody really cares about him. But he talks about how he's his dad when it's time to be a dad off the field, and football doesn't affect that relationship. And then family doesn't affect football on the field. He's very business. He talks to him. He's direct with him about everything he needs to be, and treats him just like he's another guy on the team, which is crucial. Now, why is that very important in what Kirby just said? He said it. He said, I might not have the offensive coordinator that you guys seem to think we need, but Mike Bobo is the Mike Bobo is the offensive coordinator for Georgia, and he's what Georgia needs. He's right for Georgia. Let me rephrase that. I say it again. The media tends to want to pull it out of Kirby and go, don't you think you can do better than Mike Bobo? Is he the right coordinator for Georgia? And he reiterated with the fact of it's not when you look at coordinators, it's not sometimes just what they can bring to the play calling. It's what can they bring to the development of players, how they can get people in the right, um, positioning, how they can get the best out of the quarterback and their abilities, the receivers, the running backs, et cetera. I think the ways we were, um, kudos to Mike Bobo last year and the ways he was able to get the ball to Zachariah Branch. I mean, I think you can look back and go, Mike Bobo created ways to get the ball to Zachariah Branch that USC and this mastermind of an offensive coordinator, Lincoln Riley, could not do. And if you would have gone off of how they were going to use him in USC's offense, I venture out to say that Zachariah Branch would not be even picked, because he wouldn't get enough touches. He wouldn't get seen. With what you saw from him out of USC, you had to really go deep dive into what some of his clips looked like. They weren't just out there and at the forefront of everybody's mind as far as this is a guy you got to watch out for. You didn't see that at USC. I think you saw leadership. I think you saw elusiveness. I think you saw incredible hands. I think you saw a guy that when he gets the ball in space, he's as good as anybody, not only in college football, but he could be as good as anybody in the NFL. And so I think that's what he brings to the table. I think Mike Bobo, um, he's not going to always please you, and he's not going to always make you happy in the area of exotic play calling and, you know, Will Stein, Oregon, and, Texas A&M throwing the ball around, and uh, all these teams that basically don't let the ball, Ole Miss, LSU, that don't let the ball touch the ground much. That's not what Georgia's about, right? Georgia wants to be balanced. Georgia wants to play great defense, run the football, and they want to complement it with explosive plays in the passing game. Period. That's all it is to it. So as we close the night, too, a couple things that were said. I know I said I wasn't going to go as long tonight, but we're pressing into about an hour. But things were talked about in the leadership aspect. One of the teams they covered as far as the leadership was concerned was the OKC Thunder. They talked about a lot about trying to find these are my icebreakers. They talked a lot about like being like an unselfish leadership, worried more about everybody else is getting their goals. They talked about sacrifice, playing together, playing for each other, staying humble, becoming the kind of football team that uh, you know that basically resemble championships not belonging to the most talented, but the players who are willing to go above and beyond for each other. I thought that was key, is crucial. And so he's bringing that camaraderie of, hey, worry less, and that's a mess. That's sneaky, right? And that just goes to show how smart Kirby is, because he's basically looking and he's kind of giving a message to also to recruits. Hey, it's not just about you; it's about who you are when you come in and how you can function with a team. Because we're not going to go out and win football games just because you are the best team football player on the team. Also, because you get all the catches, you get all the touches, and oh, by the way, you want all the money. It's about how do we build a team and can reward everybody on that team to in terms of image and likenesses, and then go out and win a national championship and win a football game. Period. He talked about that Georgia's a retention team. Might be the quote of the day if in my honesty. He said Georgia wants to be a retention team. In today's college football world, it's a bold statement. Everyone is chasing transfers. Georgia wants to develop players, keep players, build leaders. Uh, his philosophy is not going to change. When he looks at recruiting, developing, retaining, and repeating, it's kind of how he described it. He talked about how he admitted that coaching has changed dramatically, and how he's balancing recruiting and NIL and portal and parents and agents and roster retention. And I think Kirby in the back in the background, he's doing a lot of this stuff. But I agree earlier, he has a really great staff. And there's people, just because he's not at the forefront going, this is my NIL guy. I think there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are helping Kirby get this done. He was asked the question, about being the longest tenured coach in the SEC. He he is very proud of that. He looks up to Nick Saban a lot. Has referenced him as one of the best college football players ever to step between the lines in college football. Being Nick Saban, looks up to him a lot. Talked about the identity of the football team. I encourage you to go listen to the entire 25-minute interview. Very exciting. Will definitely get you pumped up. I thought it would be cool to end with some just some thoughts as far as carrying over into once we start breaking position groups down, once we start breaking into kind of covering Georgia in a huge blimp snapshot. I almost said snapshot of what this team is going to look like and how it's going to be put together. We're going to look at what we think the projected starting lineup will be on the offense, defense, special teams, all those things. I wanted to ask a few questions that are being asked all around college football as pertains to Georgia, as well as a lot of it was asked to a lot of the Georgia players, as well as Kirby Smart. One of the questions is who becomes Georgia's offensive playmaker this year? Who's a guy that right out of the box can fill some voids like a Zachariah Branch, a Nate Frazier? That's probably wild, right? Because it's like, well, Nate Frazier's coming back. Well, can Nate Frazier actually finally fit into those shoes that everybody looks and goes, can he be 1,000-yard rusher? Can he take the pressure of making plays that are Zachariah Branch-esque type plays to take some of that reliability factor on the offense off of Gunnar Stockton? I think he can. But let's go rapid fire to finish out the night. So, one breakout player. I'll be honest with you. I think for me, if I had to name one on offense and defense, man, I want to go immediately to the wide receiver room, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with breakout player. I think Zyke Helton, man, the opportunity to start at right guard this year as a freshman, a guy who came in as a uh, undervalued recruit, an under recruited person, and for Georgia to go out and to be able to see what this guy really was made of, recruit him fairly, bring him onto this team, and him possibly start on an offensive line that a lot of people are saying is one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in college football, definitely in the SEC. To have the opportunity as a freshman to start on that line, to play on that line at a high level is incredible. So I don't have the flashy pick you want, but I think Zyke Helton for me is going to be a breakout player. And then on defense, I think a name that has star potential that could come around this year that you haven't heard that has a breakout opportunity, in my opinion, is Zayden Walker. I think Zayden Walker is primed to come into that linebacker room and to really round out this linebacker group and make it really good, make it deadly. I think this is going to be a defense that could get us back to the days of when it was fun to watch the defense take the field because you just knew you weren't going to get much. You knew you weren't going to get much. Who surprises everyone? For me, I think when I think of surprises, I think this is where I think Talon Taylor comes into play. I think Talon Taylor is going to surprise some people. I think this receiver room is going to surprise some people. I think Isaiah Cannon could provide some, surprises, but I think that would only be because he's coming from another team and everything's going to be a surprise. I think a lot of people were surprised at Zachariah Branch. But if I had to call a name, it's Talon Taylor. I think he's going to surprise some people with his athleticism, his speed, and just his five-star ability to shine through and finally go, hey, this is why Talon Taylor was recruited so highly at Georgia and brought in and retained and to let know, hey, we're not looking for anybody in the portal because we believe in you guys. And on the defensive side of the ball, this was a tough one as well. But I think somebody who could really catch you off guard, in my humble opinion, um, man, this is a tough one, but I feel like there's some names you don't know. But if I had to just go, I really think Khalil Barnes is going to be somebody that Tyree Green was on this list as well. I think he's another freshman that it's like I don't really know who this is, but man, Georgia speaks very highly of Tyree Green, and he could be a guy that sees a lot of snaps this year that everybody's like, "Who is this kid?" Right? Georgia loves this kid. He played running back. He played everywhere in high school. This could be a kid. So I'm a between Khalil Barnes because nobody's seen Khalil Barnes and what he's going to add to this secondary that's already a really good secondary. Between him, I think because you haven't seen a lot of Khalil Barnes, but the shocker would be Tyree Green because I think you could see Tyree Green getting some major snaps um, very early on this season. Next one, will Georgia have a 1,000-yard receiver? I don't know. I think Georgia spreads the ball around so much, and I think when you look at receiving, you're going to see so many tight ends that have the opportunity to play this year, and I think you're going to see a lot of receivers this year. I can't confidently say I think you're going to see a 1,000-yard receiver. That's not how Georgia does things. Um, so I don't think you see a 1,000-yard receiver this year, but I do think you see a lot of naysayers get shut up real quick this year in how Georgia uses that receiver room as well as that tight end room. Uh, Next question: who leads the team in sacks? Man, I want to sit there and tell you, you know, that this was an easy one as well. I do think ideally you could look at. I mean, you could look at an Elijah Griffin and go, man, is this his year to shine in that area? You could look at a Chris Cole. You could look at a Raylan Wilson. You could look at a Justin Williams as Aiden Walker. Ideally, a guy that's in the best position probably to do this, though, is going to be, um, in my opinion, I think it's going to be an Elijah Griffin or it's going to be a Chris Cole. Um, one of those guys has, I mean, if those one of those guys are leading the team in an immense way, Georgia's gonna do really really well this year. But I think you look at one of those guys as being a guy who totes the stat pad in there. Which freshman plays the biggest role this year? I think it's very evident that on the offensive side of the ball, somebody that um, man, I mean, you kind of want to go back to Zyke Helton on this, but I say keep your eyes open for Caden Prothrow and how they use him in that offense this year, especially lining up in the slot on defense. I think freshman wise, man, I'm high on Tyree Green, man. I'm high on Tyree Green, and I think he's going to shock some people, and I think you might see Tyree Green in this lineup as a game changer very quickly. Last one, what everybody wants to hear is, what are the outcome for the SEC? Does Georgia make the college football playoff? I think Georgia biggest takeaway from all of this is Georgia is I think is bound for a college football playoff appearance. I think this is going to be a year that is going to be very strong for Georgia. Um, and this is kind of my last end all be all tonight. Wrapping up media days for Georgia is this is a team that has leadership. Kirby mentioned it. It's the best leadership team. It's the best leadership he's had in a long time on a team. So he's very happy about where Gunner and Raylan and Drew and a lot of those guys that are stepping up is taking the team as far as their mentality and leadership. You see a Gunner Stockton who you just feel like you can bet on Gunner, man. He's such a gutsy guy. He's a guy everybody wants in clutch situations. He's tough. He leads by example. He's not going to be flashy off the field and talk a lot off the field. But when he's in the huddle and when he's around that team, everybody knows who the leader of that team is. So that's huge leadership on this team. I think the talent as far as the offensive line, the running back depth, the ability to run the football this year. I think that Mike Bobo will find ways to get these receivers and tight ends the ball. Maybe more so the tight ends to take some of the pressure off the wide receivers. I look for the run game to present some opportunities to take the top off the defense, which we haven't had in a long time. And I look at this defense to make it look fun again, to not make us hold our breath as far as the secondary and to create explosive plays, to get sacks, and to be able to get quarterback hurries and make them, make dumb decisions so the defense can capitalize on it and put the offense in better scenarios. And I do think that all those things produce a college football playoff appearance and another appearance in the SEC championship. So I like the odds of that. So that's it. SEC Media Days for Georgia is a wrap. It's come to a close, and we are officially in go mode as far as we'll have a couple of weeks of breaking down Georgia, talking through some different position groups, and really breaking down what they bring to the table and what we can look for. And as we continue to talk about cover stories going into fall camp, it's going to be exciting. Then we're going to cover fall camp at a full go, and then we are into the season before you know it. So, anyways, that's a wrap from I'll say it, from 10 minutes outside of SEC and Media Days in Tampa, Florida. And I'm glad you guys joined. If you haven't already done so, I have to always plug this. Thank you so much for all of your participation and your follows and your likes. And man, YouTube is blowing up, and I appreciate all the likes and follows. If you're following us on YouTube, go like us, share the podcasts, and tell everybody to go and support. We're happy to bring wholesome material and to you guys, and I enjoy doing that, as well as 24 hours later on Spotify, Apple Podcast. You can listen to episode 108 right now as we finish up our SEC preview. And if you really want to go back and do a crash course of the entire summer, you can go back around 102 through 108 and get our preview of all 15, besides Georgia, SEC teams in the league this year and where we think they're going to be and what they're bringing to the table, whether they play Georgia in the regular season or may meet them possibly in the SEC championship or playoffs. And then later on, and then you can find us on Facebook, where we're live now, Dogs Down South, as well as basically any other podcasting platform out there. Please go like, follow, and support, as well as TikTok, Dogs Down South, where we will get some of these snippets up as early as this evening. So thanks for joining. You guys have a great night. This is a closure for Georgia on SEC Media Days. We still have 2 more days to go, so be interested to see what some of these other teams are talking about. Still have, I think, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, all these guys take the podium to hear what they say. But for tonight, it's a wrap, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Look forward to seeing you next time. And as always, on Dogs Down, go Dogs.